One of the first recommendations I give to my executive and director clients is that you need to be very familiar with your critical health and safety risks. I want you to be so intimately familiar with these risks that if you were one of the directors of the Dreamworld amusement park and as part of the current coronial inquest into the 2016 Dreamworld tragedy that killed 4 people, you were asked by the court to identify your critical risks, you would confidently be able to demonstrate your knowledge of these critical risks and what you monitor and measure to prevent those risks from occurring. That is the focus for today. How do you get intimately familiar with those critical risks so that you can identify what you should be monitoring at your leadership level? So let's get started. Welcome back. I'm Samantha McGulrick, and you are in the right place if you're a director or executive leading safe and healthy work in the boardroom or C-suite. Today we're going to talk about bow ties, not the kind you wear with a tux. The bow ties I'm talking about are risk assessments that provide senior leaders with a visual representation of their critical health and safety risks and associated critical controls. When this linkage is clear, it's much easier for you to identify what you should be monitoring as part of your assurance and due diligence activities. I've broken down the discussion on bow ties into 2 blog posts with the intent to avoid overwhelming you by introducing the concept and purpose of the bow tie, particularly if this tool is new to you, and going into greater detail on how to determine critical controls using the hierarchy of control. With that said, let's start at the beginning. What is a bow tie? Why is it called that? And how can you use it in your business? The bow tie is a qualitative risk assessment. This means we use a prescriptive process to define the risk level. Qualitative risk assessments are quite common. For example, your risk matrix may use a scale of high, medium, or low. This is an example of a qualitative risk assessment. In terms of why we call it a bow tie and how you can use it in your business, I think the best way for me to explain this is to show you a quick 3-minute video on how it's used in practice. There are a few videos out there that explain the bow tie, but the best one I've come across is how it's used at Roads and Maritime Services, New South Wales. This video is accessible on their website, and I'll include a link to it in the resources section of this post. But let's take a look now.
Today, we look at how bow ties are very useful in understanding risks and risk controls within Roads and Maritime Services. The Bowtie concept provides a visual outline of a specific hazardous event in one easy-to-understand diagram. As you can see, the total shape looks like a bow tie. A properly constructed bow tie diagram offers insight into the contributing factors, consequences, and risk controls of a specific hazardous event. It provides easy linkage into processes for risk management and assurance. It doesn't matter if we talk about a person working at heights or working near traffic. Bow ties will make it easier for everyone to understand a risk and how it is controlled. In a bow tie, a hazardous event is the point at which control of a hazard is lost. Let's use loss of separation between traffic and people as an example. On the left-hand side of a bow tie, we identify the factors that may contribute to the hazardous event. In our example, reduced visibility and worker error are examples of contributing factors. On the right-hand side of the bow tie, we show the potential consequences of the hazardous event. In our example, these would include a worker or workers struck that cause an injury or fatality. Controls in the bow tie appear on both sides of the hazardous event. Controls are a barrier against the risk of an event and its consequences unfolding. Preventative controls mitigate the contributing factors and interrupt the scenario so that a loss of control is less likely. In our example, advanced warning signs mitigate the risk of reduced visibility so that a loss of control is less likely. Controls in the bow tie can affect one or more contributing factors. Mitigative controls are located on the consequence paths of the bow tie. Mitigative controls cannot stop the event from happening, but they can reduce the severity of the consequence. In our example, truck-mounted attenuators do not prevent a vehicle entering a worksite, but may absorb the impact, thereby protecting the workers and reducing the severity of possible outcomes. As another example, first aid will not prevent the event from occurring, but it can save someone's life. The power of a bow tie is that it gives an overview of multiple plausible scenarios and a range of controls in a single view. To sum up, bow ties are one of the many tools we use at Roads and Maritime to help us identify risks, put risk controls into place, and seek assurance that the controls are effective. For more information on the One RMS Safety Management System, visit rms.nsw.gov.au/safety.
Okay, so now you should have a relatively good understanding of what is a bow tie and why we call it that, and the concept of a hazardous event that the bow tie is built around. But what makes the bow tie unique? Well, in most risk assessments, we have contributing factors. We may not generally call them that, we may call them hazards, but they contribute to why an incident occurs. We also have consequences. We often refer to these in a risk assessment as an injury or illness or a fatality. In the bow tie, these contributing factors and consequences sit to the left and the right of the hazardous event, respectively. But what separates the bow tie from your average risk assessment? And this is one of the first points of value that I want to highlight to you today, is that in a bow tie, you can clearly see those controls that prevent an incident or hazardous event from occurring from those controls that can't stop the hazardous event from occurring, but are necessary to mitigate the severity of the consequences. This is so useful when you are looking to allocate resources to where they are needed most. For example, it would be fair to assume that the bulk of your resources should be invested in preventative controls, not recovery after the incident occurs. And this is clearly identified in a bow tie over a standard risk assessment that combines all those controls into one. Some further benefits to using a bow tie, as the video mentioned, include identifying your safety assurance activities. These are the activities that you put in place to monitor the implementation and effectiveness of your controls. For example, in the video we learned that driver visibility is a contributing factor to vehicles hitting pedestrians. One of the preventative controls that was identified in the video to prevent an incident from occurring was to provide advanced warning signs. This could be caution signage that would alert the driver to a high pedestrian area, or speed limit signage with the intent to slow vehicles down so that the driver has more time to react should a pedestrian step into their path. In terms of your assurance activities, your business may conduct audits or field inspections that monitor the implementation of signage in areas with low visibility. Or perhaps you, as a business leader, may want to seek your own assurance when you're conducting your executive safety walk by visiting areas with low visibility and look out for warning signage. Your assurance activities also include performance reporting, and this gets back to the main purpose of this two-part post, which is for you to identify your critical risks and controls so that you can determine what you should be monitoring through your performance reports. Because the bow tie identifies preventative and mitigating controls, and those that are considered critical, you can extract a set of lead and lag indicators for your performance reports. For example, preventative maintenance may have been identified as one of your critical preventative controls. If so, completion of preventative maintenance should be included in your monthly or quarterly performance reports. In part 2 of this two-part blog series, we'll look further at those controls that are considered critical. Another benefit to the bow tie is traceability. Each activity in your health and safety management system can be traced back to the reasons for doing it when it's laid out clearly in a bow tie. This should give you some comfort that your health and safety management system is fit for purpose and risk-based. Some further benefits include how the bow tie will help you identify safety critical roles, such as those who are responsible for implementing those critical controls. You can then tie these responsibilities into job descriptions, recruitment activities, training and competency requirements, and other assurance activities. Aside from the benefits to the safety system, the bow tie can help you as a business leader contextualize how your decisions at a company level may impact health and safety outcomes at the coalface. This lack of understanding from senior management as to how their decisions affect health and safety outcomes has been implicated in numerous industrial disasters. Bow ties are also useful when it comes to company structural changes, such as reorganization, merger, or acquisition. For example, because you've taken the time to identify your controls and those who are responsible for implementation, you will be better placed to ensure that no critical controls or critical safety roles fall through the cracks. You can also use the bow tie when conducting incident investigations. For example, those conducting an investigation can easily see the controls that were meant to be in place and which ones may have failed. Finally, one of the key communication benefits of the bow tie is that it is a visual representation of your risks and pertinent controls, and therefore lends itself to be tailored to communicating with different audiences, such as operational staff, a regulator, the executive team, and the board. In its simplest form, it is a diagram that can be understood by personnel at all levels of the organization. There are, however, a few limitations to the bow tie which we can't ignore. The bow tie model is still simplistic in that it assumes that contributing factors on the left and the consequences on the right are independent. But the fact is, if you knew that a contributing factor was the cause of a fatality on the right, it would have an impact on the criticality you place on those preventative controls, and to a degree, the mitigating controls. We'll look further into how the bow tie assists in determining criticality of controls in part 2 of this 2-part blog series. Another way the bow tie is simplistic in its application is that it does not always adequately consider events that results from a combination of mechanisms or a chain of events. And this is not in line with what we have learned from incident investigations over the years. So while I mentioned earlier that bow ties can assist in incident investigations because we have a predetermined set of controls that we can test to see whether they have failed during an investigation, what we have learned over the years is that incidents have been found to have occurred as a result of more underlying problems within the management of the organization, such as lack of staff, rundown equipment, or issues with setting priorities and decision making. Overall, knowing these limitations is useful when applying the bow tie to your risk management activities, but they don't negate my recommendation for you to use the bow tie as a tool to identify your critical risks and controls. So to recap, bow ties are a great, simple visual tool that can be used to communicate risks and controls to various audiences at all levels of the organization. They help us create a fit-for-purpose, risk-based health and safety management system and identify roles and responsibilities for managing risks, which can link into job descriptions, training requirements, and other assurance activities. Bow ties do, however, have some limitations, as does any risk assessment, but we need to understand its limitations to apply the tool effectively. This is part 1 of a 2-part blog series, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. When you're finished watching this video, though, I'd love to know, do you use bow ties in your business? If so, has it helped you in your leadership responsibilities? Leave a comment below and let me know. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up below and feel free to share it with others who you think may benefit. If you want to get a regular dose of what to ask and when to act, hit that subscribe button. And if you're interested in diving further into content like this, head over to my blog on smsafetysolutions.com.au. While you're there, be sure to sign up for my newsletter to get notified of more good stuff on health and safety governance and leadership, promotions, and other insights, tips and strategies, or free resources that I only share via email. Thanks for watching. Until next time.